Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for coming out this morning. I'm very much looking forward to what Mr. Hirsch has to offer. I'm sure it's all good news. I would like to congratulate all of you guys. The last year has been, I'm going to say the last 5 years have been quite spectacular in Airdrie. We've seen kind of a nice trend, and it's been wonderful to see the new businesses coming to the community, but more importantly, participating with our existing businesses and supporting them in different ways. So I really want to thank you guys for that. I want to thank Kent and his team from Economic Development. I was doing an interview with a magazine yesterday from Victoria, and we were talking about why Airdrie is such an entrepreneurial city, and I was amazed to realize how many things we do to support new business owners in the community, supporting existing businesses in the community, and working toward everyone's success. So I want to thank Kent and his team for all that they do. Chris, you need makeup in the morning. Was that filmed early or late? I just noticed some bags under your eyes, but it was interesting to see the groundskeeper burnt to a crisp, so you know where he works. But I want to welcome everybody. I know it's going to be a fruitful morning. I saw two economists at Calgary Economic Development, and it was very, very positive, so I'm hoping you're going to trend the same way. And I look forward to hearing what you have to say, and be very, very funny as you usually are. Well, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the morning, everyone.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Leona, Esau, and I'm with Airdrie Economic Development. We're here, pleased to be here this morning with all of you to hear what Todd has to tell us about the Alberta economy and our regional economy. First of all, we just want to provide you with a brief overview of some of the things that we found out this year from our business community, our business satisfaction survey. Give you a little bit of heads up on some new exciting programs that we're working on, and then we're going to turn it over. I'll introduce Todd, and we'll turn it over to Todd, and Todd will tell us what's happening around us. Earlier this year, we commissioned Bannister Research and Consulting to conduct our second business satisfaction survey. Our first one was conducted in 2011, and we're very pleased to have reported that 89% of our local businesses believe that Airdrie's a good place to do business. Chris is going to fix the sound, I think. That is the same numbers in 2011. We're really pleased about that because we've had substantial growth in our business community over the last 2 years. We've recorded about just over 10% growth in our business community since 2011. So to report the same number, experience the population growth and the business growth we've had, is very good. Just want to tell you a little bit about who responded to our survey. We hired Bannister to ensure that our results are statistically valid. We had 488 of our local businesses participate. 47% of those were our storefronts, were our commercial and industrial, and 53% were our strong home-based business community. This high participation rate ensures that the results are statistically valid. 98% of the people who answered the survey were business owners, presidents, CEOs, or primary managers of the companies. The mean number of years that the businesses have been in existence here in Airdrie are 10.3 years. So again, really solid, good stats, or really solid, I'm just going to skip that. I'm stuck. And then 77% of those of the businesses who did respond are headquartered here in Airdrie. Just want to tell you a little bit about that satisfaction and optimism. 94% of our businesses said that they are going to grow or stay the same. So 65% of our businesses indicated that they are going to grow over the next year. We have a little video to show you from Bob Dennis from Costco, and he'll tell you a little bit about Costco's growth plans for the next couple of years.
With a strong economy here in Airdrie and in Alberta, the expansion growth is very aggressive. We're looking at expanding potentially 5 more warehouses in the next 3 to 5 years. So, you know, Prairie Province is very strong. We expand in Saskatchewan as well as Alberta. And we're looking at expanding allows us to
So we'll pop that out next time. We'll take the mic out. So 93% of our storefront businesses, 93% of our businesses also expect to hire and maintain their staffing over the next year. 48% of them expect to maintain, and 45%, so almost half of our storefront businesses expect to hire. With our population growth, that provides more jobs for our residents. And we're also very fortunate that we live on the doorstep of Calgary, where we can also draw labor from if it's not here in Airdrie. Our businesses also told us, in their own words, what the key benefits of locating here in Airdrie were. I'm going to speak to a few of them, and then we're going to turn it over to another video of actually one of the gentlemen we have in attendance this morning, Roland Polsfoot, and he'll tell you a little bit more from Technation's point of view what the key benefits are of doing business in Airdrie being located here. Our businesses told us that access to customer base was a key benefit, access to business support services, that we have a very strong business-to-business networking community. We hear that all the time from our businesses, whether they're storefront, industrial, commercial, or home-based, that we have a very strong supportive business community. And our infrastructure was rated very highly as a key benefit. I'm going to turn it over to a little video from Roland.
One of the benefits is that we are very close to the International Airport. Being that we are across Western Canada, we rely on the airport a lot to find project managers for meetings with our clients. Also, that's very convenient to be so closely located. Airdrie is a very young and vibrant community. In the 10 years that I've been here, it's more than doubled in population. That really helps us for our labor draw when we're hiring people. Of course, being so close to Calgary is very much a benefit for them as well. And one of the biggest things for us was where we decided to build our head office and the location in Kingston Industrial Park right off Highway 2.
We just want to make sure that we balance out our report to the community, so we also want to talk to you about some of the key issues and challenges that were identified in our survey. Managing growth was the key issue identified by our business community, and just the challenges going with that. It was interesting, it was also reported as one of our benefits, because of course, the more we grow, the larger the customer base becomes. For businesses, larger the labor pool, but at the same time, our businesses are also finding it a challenge to meet the demands of that managing of our growth. Access to health service was also listed as a challenge or an issue, and I know that Mayor Brown and our council are working on that along with some great community folks. Customer leakage, so customers leaving Airdrie, not shopping, not doing business here. Access to capital was listed as a challenge, and of course I think all of you have storefront businesses, or if your home-based business is looking to grow, you know that both the cost and availability of appropriate space is very tight here in Airdrie. So I just want to tell you a little bit about our home-based businesses now. 60% of them reported that their income that they derive from their business is their primary source of income. We really have a thriving home-based business community here. 24% of those indicated that they are interested in moving into a storefront, so either a commercial or industrial location, over the next 2 years. Of that 24%, 50% of those are looking for office space, 42% are looking for commercial, and then of course a smaller percentage, 7% are looking for industrial space. Our home-based business community acts as our incubator here in Airdrie. It allows a number of smaller businesses that would not be able to meet the demands of paying lease rates or a mortgage on property to start successfully in their home and grow. We've got Sandy Christensen here today from Goodman Roofing. We're going to turn it over to a little video. She's going to tell us about their experience in growing their business from their home.
Growing from your home business takes a big step. I know a lot of people are nervous about that first step. It is stepping outside of their comfort zone. Having a mentor that's in your business makes a big difference, and someone that can help you mentor through the process. Getting support from different resources as well, such as the city, economic development, business development center. There's wonderful resources for that. And just making a good relationship with your banker, your lawyer, and your accountant. It's important in establishing good relations with them.
Thank you, Sam. So one of our most exciting statistics, this is the first time we asked this question, we wanted to know where Airdrie businesses are selling. We honestly did not know what these results were going to look like. This was so exciting for us when we saw them. We found out that 43% of all of our businesses are selling, or 43% of our storefront businesses are selling outside of the Calgary region. 33% of our home-based businesses are selling their products and services outside of the Calgary region. So what was so exciting, we found that 85% were selling to Alberta, 45% of those businesses who are selling outside were selling to Western Canada, 19% to Eastern Canada, 15% to the United States, 4% to the European Union, 3% to Asia, and 1% to South America. We've now interviewed a number of businesses afterwards just to start to find out what they're exporting and where they're exporting to. We're a small community of 50,000 people, and we have almost half of our businesses exporting outside of the Calgary region, which is very exciting. So I just want to tell you a little bit about what's next for what we've been doing and some programs, give you a preview of a couple programs. One we've launched and one we will be launching, and we're hoping that some of you in this room will help us out with the new one that we're launching. But before I do that, we've got Tristan Choi came on with us over a year ago. Tristan and Kent have been very busy selling Airdrie outside of Airdrie. In the last 12 months, Airdrie Economic Development has participated in 15 investment attraction-related events in Calgary, the Calgary area, 7 outbound trade missions to Alberta and Ontario, and 7 inbound missions in Airdrie. 3 that are most notable that we participated in are the Canadian Manufacturing and Technology Show in Edmonton and Mississauga, Ontario, the Canadian International Freight Forward Expo in Edmonton, and just recently the National Supply Chain Forum in Calgary. We've been fortunate enough, Airdrie Economic Development has, to partner with the Government of Alberta and Calgary Economic Development in an Asia trade mission to Korea and China in September. One of the pictures up there is from Tristan's trip overseas. Tristan also met, when he was overseas, with the Canadian diplomat of Korea, federal and provincial agencies, private enterprises in Korea and China, all to talk about Airdrie's locational advantages when investing in Alberta's energy industry. In conjunction with all of this, we also launched a brand new, very exciting advertising campaign to promote Airdrie's young, energetic business environment and our incredible location. You'll notice the little superhero boy at the bottom there. Those ads, you may have seen them on one of the digital billboards on QE2. We've got 2 of those going. And we're also at the Calgary International Airport. I'd like to tell you a little bit about a program we launched during Small Business Week called Smart Start. I'm going to give you a little bit of background as to why we did this, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the program and hopefully some help that some of you may be able to give us with this program and delivering it here in Airdrie. We all know that small business plays an important role in our local economy. Airdrie is home to just over 1,800 licensed businesses. Of that, 99% have fewer than 100 employees, which is consistent with the Canadian percentage. A further 86% of Airdrie businesses have less than 10 employees, and more than 58% of our local businesses operate from home. Although our regional economy is quite robust, many of our local small businesses struggle to get started and find it very challenging to get past the first 3 to 5 critical years. Canadian studies show that only 35% of new businesses survive that first 5 years. In contrast, we know that statistics show that business owners with education in entrepreneurship or previous entrepreneur experience have a whopping 80 to 90% chance of success with their new business. And that's why a group of local business support organizations, Airdrie Chamber of Commerce, which is here today in attendance, Airdrie Economic Development, and our partner Community Future Centre West have partnered to create the Smart Start program. The Smart Start program is designed to increase the chance of new businesses surviving those crucial years, those first crucial years. Smart Start will provide online training, in-person seminars, and mentorship to entrepreneurs who are in the process of starting a business or have a business that is less than 3 years old. It's an 8-month program that will begin in late February of 2014 that builds on the efficiency of that online training through the Go Forth Institute, so anytime, anywhere, 24/7. You're all entrepreneurs. We all know that crazy hours and three holds. It includes a personal connection through small group sessions and matches entrepreneurs up with local business mentors. And that's the unique portion of this program. There are a number of business resource and support programs across North America. Ours is unique in that we have a local one-on-one connection with seasoned business owners and managers. We received funding for the 2014 program to support 20 local entrepreneurs. Ideally, we're looking for 10 people with business ideas who have not started their business and 10 entrepreneurs that have been in business for fewer than 3 years. We're also looking for a few more seasoned business owners and leaders for our mentorship program. I'd encourage you, when you have some time, to either give us a phone call at Airdrie Economic Development or visit our Smart Start website at smartstartbusiness.ca and find out how you can get involved in this new, exciting local program. Does any of you who know Kent, our team leader? We didn't make him do this, he voluntarily dressed up.
He always wears.
That was the mayor that said that. We're looking for some Airdrie Super Ambassadors. This is actually a picture from Halloween. We all dressed up like this. But we created the slideshow, so we got to put Kent's picture in there. I just encourage all of you to stay tuned. We've got an exciting new program we'll be launching in 2014, and we're looking for local businesses to help us tell Airdrie's story. So please watch our website and watch our announcements. So I have the pleasure of introducing my good friend Todd Hirsch. We actually started out, well, at least I started out my career working with Todd at Canada West Foundation many decades ago. Todd is ATB Financial's chief economist. He holds a BA Honours in Economics from the University of Alberta and an MA in Economics from the University of Calgary. For over 20 years, he's worked as an economist at several different companies, including Canadian Pacific Railway, Canada West Foundation, and the Bank of Canada. For almost a decade, Todd also taught economics at the University of Calgary. Todd provides economic commentary for CBC, CTV, the Globe and Mail, the BBC, and other local, national, and international news outlets. He's been recognized as one of Alberta's 50 most influential people by Alberta Venture magazine, and in August 2013, Todd was appointed chair of the Premier's Council on Culture. Todd's a very much sought after speaker. We booked him way back in the springtime so that he could come out to Airdrie on this cold, blustery morning. Sorry about that. Todd presents to over 250 groups a year in Alberta, across Canada, and internationally. In February 2012, Todd released his first book, titled The Boiling Frog Dilemma, Saving Canada from Economic Decline. If you haven't had a chance to pick it up on your e-reader, I would encourage you to do so. It's a very good read. Todd.
Thank you very much, Leona, for that very kind introduction. It hasn't been many decades. It was only 2 decades ago. I don't know if 2 was many years. But it is always great to, oh, here's the letter. Thank you. It's always great to see Leona again and Kent, and thank you to the mayor and all of you at Airdrie Economic Development for coming out this morning on what is a cold and blustery morning. And I can only say I'm thankful I'm not speaking in Crossfield today, because that's where the highway, I guess, gets really bad. So it wasn't too bad getting up to Airdrie this morning, and always nice to be back in Airdrie. And thank you also for those statistics from the survey. I think that really speaks to the vibrancy of Airdrie as a business city. As I travel around the province and I get to visit all the towns and cities and communities, you know, there is a varying degree. I think overall Alberta is doing really well, but there is a varying degree of how well certain cities and communities are doing. And it's great to see that Airdrie is one of the real pockets of economic and business vibrancy. So it's great to see, and thanks for those statistics. My presentation this morning, Alberta Economy 2014, peeling back the layers. Now we've only got about 6 weeks left of 2013, so it's high time we start talking about what we expect to see next year. So what I want to do is use this little onion as, as a bit of a metaphor for, oh, what have I done now? There we go. You know, as you slice open an onion like that, you'll see all of these different layers. And if you cut open an onion, you may shed a few tears. And that is the difference between an onion and a bagpipe. No one cries when you slice open a bagpipe. But an onion, you might shed a few tears. No offense to the Scots. But I actually think we have very few tears to shed in Alberta this year and looking into 2014. What I want to do is use some of these layers, I guess, as a bit of a visual metaphor. We're going to talk about the global economy, hone it down and talk about North America, the broader Canadian economy. Then we'll focus right in on Alberta, and I want to highlight a few of the interesting sectors that I think will be ones to watch next year. So let's first of all then talk about the global economy. What do we expect to see next year? Well, I think it's fair to say that the level of nervousness around the global economy has been lowering in 2013. You look back at 2011 and 2012, and everyone seemed to be walking on eggshells. You know, there always seems to be this sense that everything's going to collapse again. And 2013, I think, brought a renewed sense of calm. Now, you don't want to overstate this too much. There was still a lot of nervousness, especially certain pockets of the global economy. But I think overall, the global economy turned a bit of a corner in 2013. Better levels of growth, less levels of worry and anxiety. A lot of that has to do with the healing in Europe that's going on. Now again, here's where I really don't want to overemphasize this. Things in Europe are not fantastic. Those southern Mediterranean economies are still in very, very deep economic trouble. And there's still chances that governments in Greece or Spain or Italy could in fact default or potentially default. I mean, the European Central Bank has provided a backstop, which I think has gone a long way in helping ease some of the anxiety in Europe. But overall, in Europe, we did see a little bit of growth in the EU in 2013. The second quarter of 2013, they managed to eke out 0.3% economic growth. Now that's pretty weak. However, it is notable because it's the first quarter in several quarters for Europe where in fact it wasn't a negative sign in front. So they did turn a corner. They did manage to eke out a little bit of growth continentally. But they are not entirely out of the woods in their financial systems and their worries about government defaults. 2014, I think, will be a better year once again for Europe. Less anxiety again about Europe fracturing and falling apart. And that was the big concern in 2011 and 2012, is that what if we do see Greece exit the European Union, the Grexit they called it, or Spain, or a larger economy like Italy. I think there is less worry about that now, still the possibilities of that, but Europe definitely on the mend in 2013 and next year. But if we're seeing better results in Europe, we are seeing slower results in these economies, the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, and China. Now, I always have a bit of a hard time actually talking about these four economies in the same sentence because they are very, very different countries, very different economies. Not much similarity at all between Brazil, Russia, India, and China. However, the main similarity they did share was, in fact, that they were the growth leaders over the last 4 or 5 years. They were the ones doing all the heavy lifting. Growth rates in the BRIC economies were, some of them close to the double digits. But however, in 2013, we did see that growth came off in a lot of these BRIC economies, notably Brazil and India. I think those two countries, we saw growth fall the most. China, I would argue, is the most important of the BRIC economies for Canada to watch. And that isn't because we trade a tremendous amount with China. We'd always like to increase trade, of course, with China. We don't trade all that much, export all that much to China. But China's economy is the most critical for especially Western Canada because China has been responsible for global commodity prices. And we did see with the moderation in China's growth in 2013, we did see some of these global commodity prices kind of wobble this year, especially base metals. Not a hugely important one for Alberta. But for Canada as a whole, our natural resources really have depended on demand from China in keeping the world price high. So the question is, where are the BRIC economies going, especially China, in 2014? Well, I think we will continue to see the BRIC economies moderate somewhat, slowing down. China's growth, I think we will see level out maybe around that 7 or 7.5, maybe 8% real GDP growth rate. That's not too bad. I mean, that is a slowdown from the 10 or 11% they had been growing at. But I actually think a bit of moderation in the BRIC economies, a bit of pullback, is maybe a healthy thing. What you don't want to see for too long is one pocket of the global economy growing while the others are in recession. I think what we've seen in 2013 and going into 2014 is a little bit more even distribution of growth. A little bit of pickup in Europe, a little bit of pickup in North America, which I'll talk about, and a little bit of pullback in the BRIC economies. A bit more uniform rates of growth around the globe. And I think actually that will help promote some more stability in 2014. So then let's talk about the United States. We always need to understand what's happening in that economy because they are so influential, not only for the global economy, but for Canada, for Alberta maybe particularly. Well, the US, our friends to the south, it's been quite a wild ride for them this year. They were showing a lot better results. Their economy was actually ramping up quite nicely in 2013. It was all led by this guy here, the US consumer. And ever since 2010, maybe 2011, when things really bottomed out, the US consumer has gradually been picking up some optimism. Better sense of consumer confidence in the United States in 2013. And in fact, consumers are out there spending again. Even though debt levels in the United States were coming down, consumers were back opening their wallets a little bit, feeling a little bit more confident about their consumer position. Now the main reason, two main reasons really, why US consumers were feeling better in 2013, pardon me, one has to do with the housing market. We did see the housing market ever since 2009 where it really bottomed out. It too has been on this gradual improvement. Slow but steady gains in the housing market. Housing starts, housing prices, all showing much better results in 2013. Especially, by the way, in those hardest hit areas, those sand states we call them, Arizona, Nevada, Florida. There, in some of those cities, we've seen housing prices in the last year up about 20%. Now they had fallen 50%, so they had a long way to go. But when you see 20% increase in your housing price in 1 year, automatically consumers, if you're a homeowner, you're going to feel a little more confident about your position. The other market was the labor market that was helping consumers feel better. Now, you don't want to overstate this either. I mean, the labor market, they still have above 7% unemployment. We need to get it down to around 5%, which would be roughly a balanced labor market. But they were above 10%, so they've come down quite a ways. Again, it's been slow but steady increases. The last couple of months particularly, we've seen some good results in the labor market. And that too has helped encourage consumers to feel a little bit better about their position. So everything was going great in 2013 until we saw a lot of question marks bearing down. And these question marks didn't really come from the real economy, they came from the political world. And you know how the whole story went. All the drama in September and early October around Washington and the debt ceiling and the partial shutdown of government. And I thought, you know, forget Breaking Bad or The Walking Dead. Drama really plays out in Washington and in Congress. And everyone seemed to be glued to the TV set in the first 2 weeks of October. You know, the debt ceiling countdown clock on CNN and Fox News and everyone. We couldn't get enough of this. Everyone was just, you know, sort of riveted to what was going on with this government shutdown and the debt ceiling. Now, in the very dramatic way that our American friends, only they can pull off drama like this, they did reach an 11th hour agreement on October 15th, or I guess just the day prior, and they did avert a global, or a debt default on the world's largest debtor, the US government. So they did avoid a crisis, but they didn't really solve a problem, as we know. All they did is really agree to disagree and let's kick the can further down the road. We're going to go through all of this again in the first 2 weeks of January, and February 7th is now the new debt ceiling deadline, at which point the U.S. government will once again threaten to default on it. So we're going to go through all of this again. However, I'm a little bit optimistic that it won't be as nasty, it won't be quite as dramatic. And maybe I am a bit naive in thinking this. I tend to be the glass is half full, maybe a bit too much of the time. But I think we are in for a less dramatic ride this time around in January, because the biggest losers from all of the debate that happened in September and October, the ones that were hit the hardest was the Tea Party movement, which, as you're probably aware, they were the ones who really went to Washington, digging in their heels and saying, we are not going to compromise. We've been sent to Washington by our voters. We are not going to allow the debt ceiling to rise again. They had a very ideological position, and they were not going to yield on it whatsoever. Now, reasonable people can argue, if that's a good position to take, but they did see their popularity fall 20 percentage points in the polls. Whereas the Democrats and even the reasonable Republicans, no one was happy with any of the people in Congress in October, but the Democrats and the reasonable Republicans, I guess I'll call them, they did not see their popularity slide as much. It was really the Tea Party movement that lost a lot of credibility. Which to me says in January and in February, by the time we're in February, we're now only about 8 or 9 months away from the next round of the midterm elections in Washington. A lot of these folks do need to be re-elected in 2014, and if in fact they go with that same sort of pig-headed stubbornness that we are not going to negotiate or compromise, I think they realize that that is not going to do them any good in terms of re-election. I think they'll realize that, well, I can have an ideological position on this, but as a person in Congress, I still do need to cooperate and govern responsibly. So I think we will see an easier way forward. I think in 2014, the U.S. economy will continue to pick up a little bit of momentum, politics aside. And that, in fact, has been helping the U.S. reduce its deficit sort of automatically. With better tax revenues coming in and that sequestered government spending has automatically been coming down, the deficit, almost on its own, has been cut in half. Now, they're still running a huge deficit. I don't want to make this sound